the Boss Hog Radio Network. Well, we're not live at the Boss Hog, but Boss Hog has officially picked us back up. So we're going to be there on Thursday evenings at Boss Hog. So I got some new arrangements with Boss Hog, which I'm excited about. So that is all good. But anyhow, it's going to be the Chip and Jeff show today. And so if you guys have any questions or anything you want us to discuss, feel free to type it in the stream. We're streaming live right now. We're on Facebook. We're on actually 6 Facebook pages right now. We're on YouTube. We're on Vimeo. And I'm going to check the LinkedIn one and make sure that's going good. And also we are on Rumble as well. In fact, I'm going over to Rumble right now just to double check it, make sure everything's working. So, but it hasn't kicked in Rumble yet, but we got Andrew over there in MBS in Colorado. So I appreciate you guys being there. It'll kick in any moment for you guys. But apparently it is 63 degrees in Northwest Colorado where MBS is at, and 78 degrees in Richmond, Virginia, where Andrew's at. So welcome to the show, guys. We appreciate it. And I'm going to go in and pop over to LinkedIn real quick here. LinkedIn's hit or miss. Sometimes we get a good LinkedIn connection. Sometimes we don't. I don't know what the reason for that is. It's probably something Jeff's doing on his end. I'm joking with you. But let me see if we're live on LinkedIn here. Not yet. So I'll keep watching for the LinkedIn thing to kick in here. So how was your weekend, Jeff Winninger?
Oh, it was good. Can't complain. Got some yard work done and got my son all set for football to start. First practice was today.
Sweet. That gets kind of expensive buying equipment and stuff, doesn't it?
Well, generally the school, they provide everything except for my son. He's so big. They don't have like football pants large enough for him. I'm gonna have to buy him shoulder pads because they don't have anything
Wow.
that's large enough for him. I was surprised that they had a football helmet last year. Had to get him a football helmet, but he's
Really?
outgrown that one. Yeah, they're. He said they got the nickname for him. They call him the gourd for
The
for his big
gourd?
head. Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
but I mean, he's 14 years old. He's taller than me. He's about 6'1", and he's about 225 pounds. Size 16 cleat.
Wow. That is impressive and that's not a
Yeah,
stretch of the imagination. That's a pretty impressive by any standard, I think. So that's pretty wild. So
yeah, and he's got some growing to do yet. So we'll see where he ends up. But
mm-mm-mm.
he really is a gentle giant. He's got a kind heart and everything. He was on the defensive line last year. Plays a nose tackle opposite the center, and he was just by the end of the year he was just owning that defensive line. And but he's that kid who knocks everybody back and knocks them down and creates some snot bubbles, and then he extends his hand after the play's over and he helps them back up, and then he's like, "Oh,
Oh,
knock them
sweet.
back down again." So yeah,
That's sweet.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
I love it. I love it. And who says football's not a gentleman's sport, right?
yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
I tell them, I say, that's you're mean as can be during the play, but when it's after, when it's between plays, you're a gentleman, and you need to learn to be able to turn it on and off, and that's what sportsmanship's all about.
That's true. There are a lot of guys that can't turn it on and off. They just can't. I know cops that way, and I know you do too. So, but that is I don't know if the right word is talent or gift. There are some guys that just simply do not have the capability to do that. The bad guy, hauls up and punches you, starts running, and then he stops. Okay, I give up. There's some guys that say, "Oh no, 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 I'm going to get mine in first," And but some guys like me, I would say, "All right, cool, you got one on me this time," and turn around, put your hands behind your back, but there's you got to be able to turn it off, yeah.
Yeah. But
So you went.
yeah, so he enjoys it. That's most important.
So speaking of important here, I'm drinking the Black Rifle Energy. This is the Freedom Punch, and I got a case in from MVS in Colorado last week, and this is some good stuff. And I have reached out to my contact at Black Rifle, and I had not heard anything else. So I reached back out to him again over the weekend, hoping that he will follow through and that I can, we can see, what we can make happen with Black Rifle. So that'll be a great opportunity. So, and Jeff, there's still a good chance that you might be going to the SHOT Show in January.
Yeah, I'm going to clear my schedule that week, so I'm probably going to go ahead and just book my flights now and room and
Beautiful.
stuff. Make it happen. So
Well, I did.
yep.
Brett and I did Spirit Airlines last or this. Well, it seems like it was last year, but in January they go up there. Never again. Never again. No, I can't do it. And that was Brett said he recommended the airline, and they were like supposed to be cheaper, and cheaper is a good word. Yeah, yeah. There's like
Well,
just can't do it.
at the end of the day, it really isn't. The base rate ticket may be cheaper, but then you have to pay for your bags. You have to pay
You're
for
right.
like
You're
upgrade your
absolutely
seat, all
right.
kinds of
Oh
stuff.
my gosh, I got charged for freaking carry-ons. And I normally get two, but and I know we're like 20 seconds out from going live radio, but yeah, you're right. It is not that much cheaper. And so yeah, so I'm gonna be doing I've never flown business class before, so I'm doing business class, Leo roundtables, at least picking up the tab for me to do it, but we're 5 seconds out. Here we go. All right, guys, and welcome to Leo Roundtable at leoroundtable.com. My name is Chip DeBlock, and I'm your host, and we're a group of law enforcement professionals that talk about today's news and issues, but we do it from a law enforcement perspective. And we've got Jeff Weninger back on the show, retired LAPD commander and retired as a lieutenant. Now he's in Ohio. We were just talking about him going to SHOT Show along with myself and Brett Bartlett and hopefully some others, coming up next January in Las Vegas. So stay tuned for that. He's also the author of the new book coming out on thin ice, and you can get more information about that at jeffweninger.com or on thinicebook.com. And we got a lot more to talk about, Jeff. So, but it's all good. Hey, shout out to our sponsors, guys. We have Gulls, our title sponsor at Gulls.com, CompliantTechnologies.com, our satellite sponsor, and yes, we're on satellite radio right now. AeroPrecisionUSA.com, our arms sponsor. We have Gunlearn.com, MyMedicare.live, SafeguardRecruiting.com, our streaming sponsor. And yes, thanks to them, we're streaming to over 1 million followers right now on social media. And TwoBells.com, they built a new online store at LeoRoundtable.com. So if you want cool gear like the shirt I'm wearing, coffee mugs like the one behind me, go there. We don't charge anything extra. In fact, when I order the stuff, I do it this. I do Ralph. Ralph wants a coffee cup. He's holding this little styrofoam cup up too, and but we don't charge anything extra for the gear. We're just trying to get our stuff out there, so we don't make a dime off of anything in the store. And so check it out, and you may find something that you like. Also, FishOrlandoBass.com. Zach has got a bass fishing charter in Orlando, and it's right next to Disney. So look, when you're dropping the wife and the kids or the grandkids off at Disney World, steer over and hook up with Zach at the Bass Fishing Charter, FishOrlandoBass.com. Or if you're feeling more adventurous, you can do the Florida alligator hunting, where you catch and relocate the wild Florida alligator. It's a great opportunity. A shout out to Brian Burns for the Tampa Free Press at TampaFB.com. Thanks for carrying our content. Brian, also Ray Dietrich with formerlawman.com, and our own Travis Yates with lawofficer.com. Thanks to all these entities for helping make the show happen. And now, what in the world are we going to be talking about today? Our update article, we got a Colorado deputy. It's really an update. It says Colorado deputy could face massive a fine for sharing information with immigration authorities, but it's really two deputies that got in the grease. We covered previously about a week ago a Colorado deputy that got in the grease. Now we got more information about how he's being sued civilly, and there could be like a $50,000 fine associated with that. And now we find out who the other deputy is, because they did search to see if anyone else was sharing information with the task force, and they found out that they were. So we'll be covering that and seeing how you guys feel about that. We've also got some stories of video components. A burglary suspect armed with a knife is fatally shot by an LAPD officer after breaking into an apartment. And it is the Rampart Division, Jeff. I'm sure you noticed that, but it's the Rampart Division. So I can't wait to hear about that. I'm sure visually they gave the location of this. I'm sure you recognize, you just visually, you're there. You can, you know where everything's located. I can't wait to get the inside scoop. I got questions about how this thing went down. But we'll cover that. That'll be our first story with a video component. We have a canine stops a suspect who assaulted a Thurston County deputy during a struggle after a police chase. And it's amazing how after the canine comes up and bites the bad guy in the ear while he's fighting, he kind of relinquishes the fight a little bit. And then we got a 9-year-old child rescued after being held at knife point by his father. but we have a fantastic taser deployment. Even the sound of the deployment of the taser was so cool. I can't wait to cover that. Savannah officers are justified in shooting the suspect who reversed and crashed into officers during a pursuit. And then body cam shows Alberta. It is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So in Alberta, we have an officer being dragged when trying to stop a driver inside of a stolen vehicle. Apparently, they haven't got the memo on how we do that and try not to get dragged over here in the States. Of course, we still have officers getting dragged, all the time. We covered on the show, of course, but yeah, I'm glad that it wasn't one of our own that it happened to. The officer's fine. He didn't get really any serious injuries, but there's a learning curve there. So Jeff, if you're ready, I'll tell you what, let's which one do I want to? Let's start off with the update on Fox News real quick. FoxNews.com: Colorado deputy could face massive fine for sharing information with immigration authorities. So, just as a refresher, we have Attorney General Phil Weiser in Colorado. He actually sued a Colorado officer for allegedly sharing information with federal immigration agents, which violates a new state law. And it says that they can't share, that kind of information. But it says that he could face a hefty fine. So again, when they sued him, they're not going criminal; they're going the civil route, hoping to find this officer. I'm hoping that there's a union or someone taking up for him. And there's no information though. So we're in Mesa County. So Mesa County Sheriff's Office Deputy Alexander Zwink, that's Zwinck, and another deputy who they identified as Deputy Eric Olson. They ended up being disciplined by the sheriff's office for allegedly sharing information with federal immigration agents on a drug task force, during which a Brazilian college student was arrested for an expired visa, according to the Associated Press. So Mesa County Sheriff Todd Rowell said that Caroline Diaz Goncalves, that she is a nursing student, a 19-year-old nursing student. She is being pulled over by Deputy Zwink, and we covered this last week. And it was a traffic stop that happened on June the 5th. She was allegedly driving too close to a semi-truck. And when she was released without, I guess, with a warning, so he just gave her a warning, and he was with her for about 20 minutes. Federal immigration agents stopped her and arrested her shortly afterwards. So we're saying that the deputy communicated with the people that were on the special network that he communicates with the task force on, and gave them information on her and which direction she was headed in. And then they ended up stopping her and detaining her. I think it was for like 2 weeks. Deputy Zwink, it said that he was placed on 3 weeks of unpaid leave, and Deputy Eric Olson, who they identified was doing the same thing, was placed on 2 weeks of unpaid leave. And this is what the sheriff said in a statement. Both were removed from the task force as well. And 2 supervisors were also disciplined. One was suspended without pay for 2 days. The other received a letter of a written reprimand. A third supervisor received counseling. Goes on to say that based on our findings, and this is from the Mesa County Sheriff's Office, it said that the Mesa County Sheriff's Office should not have had any role in the chain of events leading to this female being detained. And the sheriff said that he regrets that this occurred. I apologize, names the girl. And this is Mesa County Sheriff Todd Rowell said this in a statement on Wednesday. He said that he's pushed for collaboration between state and federal partners to solve crime in the community in the area of drug interdiction. Homeland Security Investigations has been our primary federal law enforcement partner, although discussions had been with HSI supervision in months preceding the incident to ensure that the deputies were not going to be used, or they will only be used for criminal matters. They would not be used for anything involving immigration enforcement. The administrative review showed that those lines of collaboration were crossed. So he's blaming HSI as well. And now even the governor of Colorado, Jared Polis, signed, the weighing in on him, saying he signed legislation earlier this year that prevents local law enforcement from sharing immigration information with immigration officials at the federal level. And that's where all this thing got started. So we got two deputies now. They got caught in the grease. I don't know if there's going to be anybody else, Jeff, or not, but we got 2 guys on the porch without pay, and then some supervisors. Your thoughts on this?
Well, my first thought is that whenever you have any misconduct or behavior that violates policy, whatever discipline that you apply, it needs to be commensurate with the actual infraction. And to be honest with you, a 3-week suspension without pay and a 2-week suspension without pay, in my experience in law enforcement, that's rather severe. That being said, that's more than enough to address this. You don't need this outside entity trying to sue these law enforcement officers for $50,000 fine for their activities. Because really, when you look at this, I have questions. How well were these deputies trained? How well to what extent did the agency do their due diligence to ensure that their deputies understood the policy? Because they admittedly state that with drug investigations and things, they work cooperatively with the federal government and the federal agencies. So, how much of this could actually be a result of a failure of the organization and the department not properly training? What do we see oftentimes, Chip? We get this e-training where you get an email that
You're right.
you
You're
just
right. Yeah.
you're supposed to read it, and what happens, it's not right, but oftentimes what happens is your daily activities become your priority, and you just click that you read it and you never read it. And so you're proceeding forward without actually reading and understanding what the policy is now requiring from you. And at the end of the day, that, to me, yeah, sure, there's a certain amount of culpability and criticism that can be placed on the deputy if that in fact is what occurred. However, it's the organization's responsibility to ensure that their people are properly being trained. And something like this would require something more than an email, probably a discussion in a classroom, so people clearly understand what the expectation is, and then and only then can you then hold them accountable. But I think this discipline is pretty severe.
No doubt. Yeah. That's without pay, 3 days. Where do you go after that? I mean, you're talking termination, and it's supposed to be progressive discipline. You're absolutely right. All right. Coming up on our first commercial break, guys, stick with us. We'll be right back. All right, guys, it's time to talk about our title sponsor at galls.com. And, as police officers, we all know that we can buy our gear from a lot of different places. And especially when you consider online, it's almost endless, right, as far as the choices go. But I want to remind everybody here about the importance of supporting the companies that actually support law enforcement. And I don't know of a company that does that better than Galls at galls.com. Even their motto is proud to serve those who serve, which, of course, they do in spectacular fashion. And they walk the talk by supporting dozens, and I mean dozens, of focus organizations like this radio show. So when you're looking for gear, please support our title sponsor by going to Galls at galls.com. Personally, I love their go bags. I love their boots. They got some great stuff going on. They got deals all the time, like free shipping and stuff. And they have gift cards. We give away a couple every week on the show. So if you haven't done this yet, go to galls.com, hook up your family, friends, and loved ones with a new Galls gift card, and they will be your new best friends. Again, that is at galls.com. Now it's time to talk about Compliant Technologies at complianttechnologies.com. And, Compliant Technologies, they're committed to providing non-lethal solutions to help officers gain the upper hand safely and rapidly in a humane, low-optics manner, utilizing their CD3, which stands for Conductor Distraction and De-escalation Technology. Now, their flagship product, we all know by now, it's called the Glove. It's helped officers tens of thousands of times with no injuries. And yes, you heard that correctly. I said no injuries. The Glove has actually achieved non-lethal status in an arena that predominantly can only offer less lethal results. And when it comes to weapons retention, transitioning to a sidearm or conducted energy weapon, the Glove at complianttechnologies.com, they virtually eliminate weapons confusion. So stay ahead of the game with Compliant Technologies and their revolutionary CD3 that hundreds of agencies have already turned to nationwide. And friends, take it from me, when it comes to safety, this is one of the most common sense, hands-on solutions that's ever come along. So go to complianttechnologies.com today and tell them that Chip sent you. Again, that is complianttechnologies.com. And don't forget to watch those cool videos. You're not going to miss those. complianttechnologies.com. All right, we've got 2 minutes before we come back to the radio portion of the show, and got a little bit new commercial layout here, Jeff. If you hadn't noticed, so I had to move some stuff around, but it's all good. And hopefully, after SHOT Show in January, we'll be moving things around quite a bit again. Make room for some new sponsors. So it's all good.
Very good.
So Jeff,
I don't know how you do it.
Well, you're going to find out very soon. You're going to find. So Jeff's the new co-host for the show, and I was thinking, when we go to the SHOT Show and stuff, I know that that's in January, but I was thinking, I may, the first day that we do our live show, I might just go and do everything, but then after that, I might just end up being the board op, basically, for lack of a better term, while you host the show or Brett or whatever, so that would be, give you guys the opportunity and to get involved as much as you want. But there's a lot of multitasking going on and stuff, but to give you a chance until I get some equipment to you and for you and stuff, it'll be good experience, so and then I'd be right there. I could do all the heavy lifting, hold the fingers up, got 10 seconds left, all that stuff. So it's all
I
good.
look forward to it. Any
Yeah.
any reason to get out of Ohio in January is a good reason. So
Now we're
it'd be
doing
nice
live
to be in
shows
Vegas.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe Monday, but the convention's not open up yet. So the dilemma is where do we do a live show? You have to have really good internet. And I'll have the modem hooked up on the box, but Ethernet is preferable. I'll have a modem as a backup, but we'll have to be somewhere. So we may be in a suite with Compliant Technologies and just doing it out of there on that Monday. And then of course Friday we're headed back. So it won't be a live show on that Friday, but it's all good. All right, we're less than 10 seconds out. Back to satellite. Here we go. All right, guys, welcome back. Leo Roundtable at leoroundtable.com. My name is Chip the Block, and I'm your host. And we've got Jeff Winninger from LAPD. We are a law enforcement talk show, and we tell the news from a law enforcement perspective. We make no apologies for that whatsoever. But it's an interesting twist. And so, people ask me all the time. I had someone ask me on the phone today, your user base, how do you best describe your user base? And as much as I hate YouTube because they suck, and they really do, most of the best demographic information I've been able to get is really from YouTube. And so roughly my estimation is that about 50% of our user base is active and retired LEOs, law enforcement officers. And the other 50% are civilians that absolutely love us, with the exception of about 1% of those. Those are the haters, the people that hate us, but they just can't. It's like crack cocaine. They just can't get enough. So 1% of that 50%, they're people that just hate us, but they just have to log into the show, listen to us, and type in stuff and debate with me on, on Rumble and stuff, about things we're talking about and stuff. But it's all good. So I know that we've been talking about a couple of sheriff deputies in Colorado that got jammed up for sharing information with a drug task force about illegal immigrant, and they got slapped. Actually, they got kind of hammered with a 3-week and 2-week suspension without pay, respectively. Are you ready to move on to a story with a video component? All right. I got to warn you, it's LAPD Rampart Division. This is where you used to work. So I can't wait to get the inside scoop here. Rumble.com, our favorite law enforcement video channel called This Is Butter. We have a burglary suspect armed with a knife is fatally shot by LAPD officer after breaking into an apartment. So East Hollywood, California, suspects accused of breaking into an East Hollywood apartment. It's really he's at an apartment complex, multi-level, and they have outside balconies with railings, metal railings on them. And it also says he's throwing. I have never seen bad guy throw pieces of lumber at officers from an elevated balcony, but he's throwing pieces of lumber at officers. He ends up being shot and killed during an officer-involved shooting. So this all happened on Thursday morning after 4:00 in the morning. When officers with the Los Angeles Police Department's Rampart Division, which is what Jeff used to be in charge of, responded to several calls about a burglary at an apartment complex. Now, the callers indicated that the suspect, who they later identified as 27-year-old Victor Manuel Carrillo, that he actually was trying to get into some of the apartments. And he was later spotted near an entrance on the second floor of the complex, and he was on the outside balcony with the railing and everything. And Carrillo, look, there's a lot of body cam videos showing this dude launching lumber and ceramic pots and anything he can find, plants and everything just flying, right? And he's doing this always armed with a knife. And the LAPD is doing a decent job of firing less lethal at him, but that's what they're doing. In fact, I know that predominantly it seemed like there were beanbag rounds that were being launched at the sky and he's being hit, but it didn't really change his behavior or activity. Police said that Carrillo took off and broke into an apartment on the second floor through a window. And when the officers made their way into the apartment, he confronted them with a knife and a metal chair, and he was using that as kind of like as a barrier as he's charging the cops, and they opened fire, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. It says that an officer was hit by lumber, declined medical treatment. 2 community members suffered minor injuries during a struggle when he was trying to enter their apartment. and one of them was treated by the fire department. The other one declined treatment. Going to my show notes, there's a lot of stuff like the first half of this thing up until like the 9-minute mark. You've got body cams and close-ups of this guy just launching this lumber, these the lumber planks, the wooden planks at the officers and stuff that are down below and stuff. But really starting about 8:57 is where they have a female calling in 911 about this, and she's whispering because she's breaking into the apartment from the balcony. I'm curious, Jeff. I mean, I really want to hear how this went. It almost sounded. I don't know if the cops were aware that. I don't know how they missed him breaking into the window, because I know when they were up there, how did he get in? How did he get in? And the cops said, there's a broken window. He got in through the window. But it seemed like the cops were unaware until this phone call came in that he broke into this woman's apartment from the balcony. And they dispatch notifies Rampart units at 9:26. And then we had body cam. It picks up about 9:33 on the video. And when police respond to the apartment, now they're outside the balcony, and there is, it's not, she's got burglar bars on there on the doorway, but not on the windows. And so they have to get the burglar bar open on the doorway. They finally were able to kick in the front door at 11:11, force entry at 11:20. And there is less lethal starts at 12:17. And then when this guy charges them at 12:21 with the knife and with this metal chair, because I think he's thinking they're still using less lethal. And but at that point they go lethal on it. But we got 2 minutes, Jeff. Love to hear the LAPD take on this one.
Well, I listened to the entire video. Initially, it starts with the communications division recording with the woman in the apartment calling and talking to the communications civilian, and described that the individual is trying to break in has tattoos and stuff. So my first thing was, perhaps he's a gang member, and these are gang tattoos that she's seeing. That area, you're right. I worked Rampart Division as a sergeant. I was a field sergeant there, and then I ran the gang unit, the gang enforcement detail unit, for 3 years. So I'm very familiar with that area. Actually, where that is, it's between like Vermont and Normandy, if anybody's familiar with Los Angeles, and it's just south of the 101 Hollywood freeway. And back in the late 90s, that was what a gang called White Fence. That was their area. But then MS kind of came in and took control of it. So I believe MS is still in control of that area. So my initial thought was this was a gang member. But then, in the response of the officers, they initially made contact with the guy. They verbalized with him initially, and then the guy began to escalate, and they elected to start shooting beanbag rounds. Now, the problem with the beanbag rounds was that they're shooting up from the ground up to a second-story level, and there's an issue with that. And I can get into that more after the break because it's quite involved, but it's something that anybody in law enforcement should be considering in that type of a situation.
All right, excellent. Perfect timing. Guys, commercial break. Stay tuned. The story's going to get really good from LAPD. Commercial break. We'll be right back. All right, guys, introducing Aero Defense by Aero Precision at aeroprecisionusa.com, a beacon of durability, dependability, and all-American craftsmanship in the realm of duty rifles. And yes, we're talking about long guns. They're born from an aerospace engineering company, so these guys know what they're doing. And Aero Defense by Aero Precision demands perfection because selling for anything less is not an option when your life is on the line. Visit aeroprecisionusa.com for a lineup that matches every discipline because they basically have something for everybody. And back since 1994, they've been quietly leading the AR builder parts domain, but now they're making waves in the complete rifle arena with soulless bolt actions. And that's not all. Their M4 E1 Pro and Mod 4 handguards, they hit the market last year at aeroprecisionusa.com. The embodiments of duty rifle excellence now being tailored for the civilian customer, which means that now you guys can start getting your hands on some of the primo stuff. And their M5 AR 308 platform, nothing short of spectacular. So don't settle for less. When you can have the best, head over to aeroprecisionusa.com. All right, we've got 4 minutes now before we come back to the radio portion of the show, guys. And all right, we're off to a good start here. That's halfway through the show, just like that. Just crazy how this thing goes. So I can't wait for you to create that verbal word picture for us, Jeff, so that we're there. When I watch movies, I don't know if you're like me, But I mean, when I watch a good movie or something, man, I am there. If something happens, dude, I'm like jumping and like moving and like, I mean, I insert myself in this movie. When I read books, same thing. I like it when I don't necessarily want to be overly descriptive, but I want to know, what the time of day it is, what the weather's like, because I insert myself I'm like that. We're visual creatures anyhow, but when I watch movies, I'm like that. So as you tell the story, I'm visually putting myself. I did see the video, so I know the outlay of the apartment complex and stuff. But I love when you tell your stories to try to imagine being there when the stuff is going down. That's the part that I enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, when I was watching the video, I'm like, I'm pretty confident. I think I probably actually served a warrant in this apartment complex at one time or
Yeah.
another.
It probably
So,
hasn't even had a paint job since you left LAPD, that apartment complex. you
yeah,
know?
yeah, it's quite a unique kind of a neighborhood because of how the freeway goes through the division. That neighborhood, when they built the freeway, became kind of cut off. So it's fairly isolated, if that makes any sense as far as ingress and egress. And that creates a circumstance where these gang members can really gain hold because they know where law enforcement has to come in and go out. And it it slows down the entire process in responding to incidents. So it's very unique.
Well, yeah. So when I go to California, I'm a little bit further north than that. I'm in like I'll go down as far as south as Santa Barbara, but I'm sorry, that's about all I can. That's all I can do. Unless I have to drive to the LA airport to leave, I'll be from Santa Barbara north to like Carmel, Monterey. I'll try that.
Right. Well,
I will land in San Francisco, but I'll beat feet out of that airport as quick as I can too.
yeah, I'm my half brother. He's younger than I am. He has a girlfriend who's lives in California. He actually met her when he was out visiting me a number of years ago, and they've been dating since. And he and my half sister and her husband, they went out there this weekend. And I got a text message yesterday. They were down on Laguna, and they're like, "Please tell me why you moved from here to Ohio.
Really?
What were you
Oh,
thinking?" And
oh,
they're like, "This is so beautiful here." I
it is.
said, "I know it is.
Yeah.
It is beautiful." But
Um,
it's they're down in Laguna. Who can afford to live in Laguna? Laguna, it's
that's the
not me.
point. I used to
It's
go see my brother-in-law in LA, and dude, it's just, it is beautiful. They have porches, and just for people that are listening to the show, and just, they have outside porches and decks and balconies, but they've got all their nice furniture out there, and you're thinking, how? I mean, I live in Florida. There's no way I can leave anything. It's going to get rained on or ruined, right? No, not there. It's just the craziest things. And I had I had a Cobra. I could drive it around half the year because it's just rain and wet. There, I see guys with cars that are, you know, um, they don't have tops for them. They don't need them because it never rains and the weather's just always great. And it's nice and it's cool at night. Oh, yeah, there's some great things, but just it's just cost prohibitive to live there. All right, going back to satellite. Here we go, guys. All right, guys, welcome back. Leo Roundtable at leoroundtable.com. My name is Chip DeBlock, and I'm your host for a law enforcement talk show, joined by former LAPD commander of the Rampart Division, I might add, Lieutenant Jeff Wenninger. And he's breaking down a story for us right now. We have a bad guy. He's a would-be burglar trying to break into several apartments at an apartment complex. They've got these outside balconies that have wire or have metal railing, and that's where he's at lunch. And it's a huge balcony as far as the length going, across the building. And he's launching like these 2x4s and ceramic potted plants and just everything he can find at the cops. And he's insulting them with verbiage and stuff. And at some point, there's an apartment up there. He's on her balcony and he busts through the window and he goes inside. And it's not until the woman calls dispatch and tells them that the guy broke in that it appears that the cops were not aware until then. And they get up on the balcony and they see how he got in, and then they make entry. And after a bunch of less lethal, which happened on the outside too, he charges them with a knife and a metal chair, and they go lethal and they kill him. So and Jeff was he used to work. He's very familiar with the area, and he was breaking it down for us. So you've got over 9.5 minutes, Lieutenant Jeff. The floor is yours.
All right. So yeah, like you described, this guy was just launching everything he could put his hands on at these officers, which is an issue. I mean, that's an issue for these officers, and they focused on deploying less lethal to try to control this guy, and I see that there's an issue with that in regards to that they were using the beanbag rounds initially. They're firing from down below up to a second story landing, or it's basically the exterior hallway or whatever you want to call it. But what you have is you have a wrought iron um, fence along the walkway there where he's standing on the second floor. Now those beanbag rounds, they have number 9 lead pellets in them, where they're about 8/100ths of an inch in size. And the problem that you have is if you're firing those and say they hit that wrought iron fence and they break open, you now have these lead projectiles, which is something you need to be considering, because that can make this less lethal, potentially lethal. So that was something that they should have considered. I did see them eventually transition over to the 40, which is like a foam round, which you don't have this potential for it breaking open and having these lead. Essentially, they'd be like small shotgun rounds going at the suspect. So that was one thing. The other thing was that they just honed in on where they were at the time. They needed to really think about what is our ultimate goal and why are we here? We are here because this guy was trying to break into one of these apartments. What were they doing? What was their response doing to prevent him from following through with that? And the reality was nothing, because he ultimately accomplished what they were there to prevent from occurring. And their tactical deployment of personnel resources did not address that. This guy's focus was towards the front of the building where the officers initially were. They had his attention. They needed to get another team of officers deployed. There's sets of stairs on each end of the long hallway that he's in. I don't know. Is there a better word for that? Not necessarily. It's not really a hallway. I don't want to call it a hallway, but it's like a motel.
Exterior.
You step out of out of your motel room and you're on the, and you can see the parking lot and you're looking down and there's a railing and all that stuff. That's what this looks like, but it's an apartment complex.
I'm sure the people who live there right now appreciate that, Jeff. That description.
Yeah, but so it would have been nice to see a team of officers go up while they have his attention up front and try to address him, to prevent him from being able to do what he ultimately did, was get inside. I mean, those people were terrified. If you watch the video, it's a small apartment complex. And after the shooting occurs, these people had barricaded themselves in the bedroom with the mattresses up against the door. And I mean, they were completely terrified. So there was kind of a breakdown in, it kind of just froze in their ingenuity in being innovative and creative and how to address this tactical scenario, and actually determining and establishing why are we really here and what do we need to be doing to accomplish what needs to be accomplished. They just were basically responding to everything that was launched at them with a less lethal deployment. Right. That's essentially what occurred. So when they go up there, they spent way too much time in front of that door trying to figure out what's going on. Yeah. You don't ever want to do that. Now, they had the lethal, I think they had the less lethal. How they were there as long as they were, having worked Rampart, why didn't they have a ram to get through the door? This guy kicking it open, there's no excuse why they shouldn't have had that tool there. There's a number of units that have those deployed in them. And they needed to do that. That was just not a tactical deployment, because you had large exterior window, which exposed you to what's inside. You have a guy trying to kick the door open, which I give him credit. He was determined. He got it open, but it took him a little while. And in doing so, he's compromised. Had that
Yeah.
guy just opened the door and came out, good Lord, and had it been a mistimed kick, he's opening it at the same time. You're inside that location. He didn't have a gun drawn, and the suspect armed, known to be armed at least minimally with a knife. And I don't know about you, Chip. I'd rather be shot than stabbed. I don't ever want to be stabbed.
Knives are nasty. Yeah.
Right. So that was an issue. And then when they go inside, when there was a very small, you have like a living room area, and it looked like a little pantry or a place where they may store food or something off the kitchen, where he was kind of secreted behind, and he had like one of those metal chairs that you would see at a church picnic, essentially
Yeah.
folded. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he had the knife, and he then approaches them, and that's when they go lethal. And there's this the one thing that I saw. This guy, there's number of rounds fired, and then the guy goes down, and then there was a number of rounds fired after when he was on the ground. And I thought to myself, it's going to be interesting how this shooting is going to be handled, considering what Tony McBride went through.
Oh.
If you have an issue with Tony McBride shooting, you certainly have an issue with this one.
Right. Shots 5 and 6.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there was a round that seemed like it was 3 minutes late when the guy was. I mean, it was bad.
May have been a delayed primer ignition on that one. Maybe I'm thinking so. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, it may have actually. I mean, my thought was it was a negligent discharge, that it wasn't even actually intended, because it seemed to be that late. But yeah, it just seemed like an over deployment of lethal. Because in the past, I did a study for Chief Charlie Beck when he was concerned with about the number of rounds that were being fired. We had this huge increase in number of rounds and number of officers firing these officer-involved shootings. And he's like, is this something we're doing? Were we training this inadvertently? And I did a year-long study, and I did a thing with the sheriff's department where we were able to create contagious fire. We could cause officers to fire.
Yeah.
You create the circumstance where you knew multiple officers are going to fire when there wasn't a lethal force scenario. Now, granted, here was a lethal force scenario, but you had a heck of a lot of guys firing, which always escalates the criticism of the police department. And we never want to put officers in any type of jeopardy, but at the same time, we want to be cognizant of making sure that we're optimally deploying our resources and not over responding to something. So it'll be interesting how this case is adjudicated. I did this for a number of years. I wrote Chief William Bratton and Chief Charlie Beck's rationale for their recommendation for the adjudication of officer-involved shootings and all lethal force cases, and that was be submitted to the Honorable Board of Police Commissioners, who are the ultimate adjudicators. And there's a number of this will be a fairly lengthy report. is my expectation. So yeah, there's some things that went well, but there's a lot of things I think there's lessons learned. And in hindsight, given the same circumstances again, we may want to do things a little differently.
All right. Well, good breakdown and good insight. I had a lot of questions. Now you answered, most of those. So yeah, I am so glad that the resident did not end up getting stabbed to death or something, worse happening. There would have been, flags, liability flags were just going off in my head on that one, So, but thanks for telling us how it could have been. There's always something to be learned, even when things go right. There's still stuff we can learn. So it's nice to always have that mindset on being willing to learn and evolve in the profession. Guys, we're coming up on another commercial break, so we got some more good stories with video components. Stick with us. We'll be right back. All right, guys, it's time to talk about GunLearn at gunlearn.com. And as law enforcement officers, we deal with guns every day, but it's what we don't know about them that gets us in the trouble. Injuries, civil lawsuits, accidental discharges, misidentifications, lost prosecutions, and even disciplinary issues. But gunlearn.com, they have your back. You can quickly become extremely firearm knowledgeable by simply learning 14 training modules from the convenience of your home or your office, or by attending the live seminar at gunlearn.com. You can also become a safe, accurate, and competent certified firearm specialist like our very own Captain Brett Bartlett and also attorney Ken Apianco. Now, the course said huge success in raising the bar of firearm knowledge, and GunLearn has been a trusted source since 2011 by gun manufacturers, federal agencies, forensic organizations, and police departments nationwide. Now, if you have your own agency, the founder, Dan O'Kelly's got a deal for you. You can actually host a seminar for absolutely no cost. It's an amazing opportunity. You can go to gunlearn.com to get more information. Again, that is at gunlearn.com. All right, 2 minutes before we come back to the radio portion of the show. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to us all being together and doing live shows together at SHOT Show. That should be a lot of fun. Just I just got to get the gear. I got to get another Pelican in case or two, and then we're good.
Yeah, it should be a real good time. I mean, especially, a number of us, we've never met. So, to meet in person, and then, I suspect just all of us having law enforcement backgrounds, generally all of us, will just kind of build off of our
Yeah, you
our
never meet a
uniqueness, I
stranger.
guess.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. At even at going to police week and stuff, just you got 25 to 40,000 law enforcement officers there. It's so much camaraderie there. I mean, unless there's always an issue between the Newark cops and the Miami cops, but other than that, I don't know where that comes from. It's kind of like NYPD and the fire department. They just there's just like sometimes it's an unhealthy rivalry. But no, I can't wait for it. When Brett and I were there, we had a VIP event every night. I don't think that we ever paid for dinner. It was just always, something going on. And so I'll line up a lot of that for us. So we should have, the goal is to have an event. Not for that reason, but the goal is to have something going on every evening, after we get done running the show and hooking up and, networking and stuff, to have that. And that's even more networking really at these events, but they've got so much stuff going on. We'll be very busy. I mean, we were so busy, Brett and I were. Oh my gosh, it was a lot of fun. But we were ready to come home at the end of the week, so it's all good. 10 seconds out. Here we go. Back to radio. Welcome back. Leo Roundtable at leoroundtable.com, the law enforcement talk show. My name is Chip the Block, and I'm your host. We're joined by co-host, and that's right, Lieutenant Jeff Wenninger, our former LAPD commander. And look, we've been talking about Rampart and some other stories that we've had. We're ready to move on to another story with a video component. And Jeff, I was going to ask you, we've got roughly almost 9.5 minutes. I see Paul Bogart has been typing on the stream. Good to see you, Paul Bogart. Thanks for watching. And yeah, we've got a lot of other guys like Dr. Sylvester House Jr. just made a lengthy post on here talking about some legislation. So, and Bill Van Rom, we got a lot of people posting here. But as far as the next story we cover, we got a canine that stops the assault on an officer and or on a deputy. Then we got the 9-year-old child that's being held at knife point by his father. I really wouldn't mind covering that one. We may have time to cover both. Is that okay? All right.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, let's take them out of order just so we can make sure we cover the child one. So at rumble.com, again, our favorite law enforcement video channel called This Is Better. We have a child that's 9 years old, rescued after being held at knife point by his father of all people. It's just crazy to watch this go down. Obviously some mental health issues here. So Montgomery County, Maryland, Germantown man is arrested after Montgomery County Police Department says that he threatened to kill his young son and he held him at knife point, and this happened late in July. So the officials say that the 5th district officers, they rushed to a home around 10:14 in the morning after a call about a domestic disturbance. The caller reported to police that our bad guy, Dugan Gotkin, 47 years old, he's inside the house and he's threatening to kill his 9-year-old son. Officers get there, they speak with the family members, they try to de-escalate the situation by talking to our bad guy. When the officers enter the home, our bad guy goes into the kitchen. He's got a large knife up to his son, and he's in the kitchen area. There is a wall with an open bar or counter there, so the officers can kind of like see through that and see the bad guy. But they've got they can partially see him. So he's given multiple commands to drop the knife. He refuses, and he's ultimately forced to drop the knife after a 5th District sergeant who went to the home used his taser. Now, I'm not sure if this is the new Taser 20. I suspect it probably is a multiple fire taser, but it was like it was a double tap. You can hear these probes being fired from the gun, and you can see them hit the target. And it was it sounded really cool. It was a thing of beauty because the guy has got his son, got the knife, and you see the guy, it looks like he starts to go down, and the officer verbalizes, hands on, and you've got other units there to the side that rush into the open area for the kitchen. They get in the kitchen, and they end up I'm not sure the son was. I saw one video where it looked like the guy still had control of the son. I saw another one where it looked like the son had already gotten away. But in any case, they separate the son from the bad guy, separate the knife from the bad guy, and he goes down, and they end up arresting him, and no injuries reported. So I absolutely love success stories like this when they go down. Your thoughts on this one, Jeff Winninger?
Yeah, I think the thing that really stuck out to me was how calm these officers were when they walked into this scenario. You can't get a more stressful situation than having an adult who's holding a child hostage with the means of deadly force available to them. This guy had a knife. It was a heck of a knife. And rather than just yelling and screaming, drop the knife or I'm going to kill you, and they had a different tone about them. They behaved and acted as if they've been in this kind of a scenario before. There was a sense of confidence about how they conducted themselves, and it was very different than what we saw in the Rampart case. I mean, it really was. I hate to say it, but it's true.
Yeah.
I was really impressed with how they had one person communicating. There wasn't a lot of people just yelling, and it was masterful to the extent where they had the less lethal, the taser. They deployed it. Boom! You could see it worked. I mean, what is it? Tasers work 30% of the time, but this time it did. I mean, this guy just starts falling. He freezes up and he just starts falling over. And an unbelievable level of communication. When you're talking about a tactical scenario, it's all about communication. Communication will determine whether or not something will be successful. And he communicated, as you said prior in describing this incident, that he's saying hands on, and they were on that guy straight away, where they were able to separate the child from him and disarm him from the knife and take him into custody without any further incident. It was that right there should be a training scenario from the beginning of the interaction all the way through to the deployment of the taser, the communication, and the teamwork that was involved. I was really impressed, Chip. I really was.
Yeah, I mean, it completely justified in going lethal if he wanted to. I was impressed that he was a sergeant number one, so he was very, very confident in his capabilities, and there's a trust factor there too. So when he's going hands on, these guys have got to trust the sergeant, knowing that this guy is incapacitated. They're charging in thinking that the sergeant's basically telling them, I've incapacitated this guy with a taser. It's working. When they round the corner, and there's a dude with a knife there, they're putting themselves in a pretty bad situation, right? And they're trusting that sergeant going on his word, and they're running right up on the bad guy. So yeah, it was a thing of beauty. It was really quite impressive. Yeah.
It really was. And in this case, they were fortunate enough to have a sergeant. That sergeant's presence may give the confidence to the officers in the direction. But really, the reality is somebody, whether there's a sergeant there or not, needs to step up and take command and control of the situation and be the one that's going to give the direction on how things are going to occur. So whether it's a sergeant or if it's an officer that steps up and takes that role, it's important that it occurs, because this is an example of how things can go well. This is one circumstance where I would say the outcome was an optimal outcome. this was as good of an outcome as you could expect.
Yeah, and we got it all on video.
Yeah. So no, I can't say enough about that incident and how they handled it. It was outstanding.
Yeah. Well, good. And so yeah, I agree with you for a training video. And the nice thing is, I suspect that this sergeant, the troops that work for him, have a huge benefit of working for a guy like this that's showing you how to get it done. And he's a hands-on sergeant. There's a lot of, well, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but and I retired as I was really a corporal. I have detective on my badge. That was where I wanted to be known as a detective when I left, but really the troops working for a guy like that, he's a training sergeant, he's a hands-on sergeant, so you're going to learn more from working for a guy like this than somebody else. And I tell you, it just brought so many great memories of some of the great trainers that I've had in the past, because not all sergeants are like that, know that, and some guys get promoted above their ability too. It's just going to happen. They don't have training classes on telling you how to become good leaders and good surgeons. And as you go up the chain, you would think you have even being a lowly detective, they don't really have great training that teach you how to have investigative skills and how to do this and do latent investigations. You just have to wing it until you learn it. It's just.
And it's clearly evident that we all know in law enforcement that there's never enough dollars to give officers the amount of training that they actually need. And to see something occur in this type of a stressful situation where it's rapidly unfolding, it's highly stressful, and to have them perform at this level, that tells me that this sergeant goes above and beyond. It's not about the formal training that the department's paying these officers to go to. It's the enrichment training that's done in roll call or out in the parking lot or over a cup of coffee,
Yeah.
the discussions that they have that make it possible for this type of outcome to occur. And it's, you hit it on the head when you're talking about it. It's about leadership, and it doesn't have to be a sergeant. It can be a senior officer. It can be a junior officer who has outstanding background in the military that can bring that level of expertise and command and control to a situation. But at the end of the day, it should be somebody, and this is just something that oftentimes we don't see enough of in law enforcement. Taking
Agreed.
to the commitment to train on your own time.
Agreed. Well, great breakdown. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Jeff Weninger, for being on the show. I do want to mention the Wounded Blue, thewoundedblue.org. Lieutenant Randy Sutton's 501c3, helping cops out in the world of hurt. Watch the clock, Jeff. Take me to about 20 minutes before the hour, and so you've got about 30 some seconds. But let's talk about your book coming out and give the latest update for our listeners and viewers.
Well, the book will be coming out. I'm going to be making the announcement here. Look out for the date that I'll be making the announcement. On that date, I will be giving away free VIP books to a number of winners. But the book, it's called On Thin Ice, and you can find it at onthinicebook.com.
Love it. Love it. On Thin Ice, guys. Stay tuned for that. Also, galls.com, complianttechnologies.com, aeroprecisionusa.com. And Galls is having all kinds of sales right now, guys. Gunlearn.com, on Medicare.life, safeguardrecruiting.com, 2bells, and FisherLandO'Bass.com. And thanks for watching the show. We'll look for you guys back tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern. Be safe. And we're going to keep this going for the next minute and a half just to keep the satellite company happy. Yeah, I'm excited for the book. I can't wait for you to break the news on the show, and then I'm gonna record that little piece, that little nugget, and I'm gonna send it to Randy Sutton, and I'm gonna say, yeah, Jeff just released it on my show, exclusive Leo Roundtable. I'm gonna have some fun with that. So it's all good. So
yeah, and on my social media, I'll have a social media post that will let everybody know the date that I'm going to be releasing, the date that it's going to be released. I'll be telling everybody
the date of the date.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, if you guys want a date with Jeff Weninger, just go to LinkedIn and befriend him on LinkedIn if you want to date with him. And actually, LinkedIn is really, if I got to pick one social media outlet, LinkedIn is by far the best. And so I recommend people even watching the show, hook up with your favorite radio personalities that are from the show and go to LinkedIn, hook up with them, and stuff going on like Jeff and his, in his book, or he's got anything else going on. It's a great way to stay in the know on what everybody's going on. Randy Sutton included with that, and also the Wound to Blue. It's just a great resource for you guys. So, streamers, we're gonna let you guys go. We've had a lot of commentary. I have not even been able to